Now, let's be honest, most productivity advice doesn't really work for many entrepreneurs, especially if you're actually building something real. You're managing your people, your calendar is a minefield, and somehow you're supposed to be creative while checking Slack, answering team messages, and still planning for, let's say, the next quarter. I actually felt the same way for a couple of years, but then I basically implemented the Flow Grid system, and it changed the way that I looked at productivity. And this is how I ran my business that actually consistently pulls $100,000 a month with just a handful of team members who actually implemented this exact same system. Now, it basically starts with the first shift, which is psychological. I used to think that productivity meant like doing more in less time. But as a founder, that's a trap. The real game, it's only doing what actually moves the business forward. And here's the truth, like that I had to learn the hard way. If you're always reacting to what's urgent, you actually never make time for what's important. Like for example, like strategy, product, content, or creative work that actually builds long-term leverage. So the Flow Grid actually starts with this question, like what do I actually need to spend my time on as a CEO? And how do I structure my week so that I am not just busy, but also effective? Here's basically like the top level structure, right? And you're probably looking at this and you're like, Sam, you just said like your calendar shouldn't look crazy. Let me explain. Right? We basically have Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? These are like my structured days. Everything lives here inside of my calendar. The calls, team syncs, investor stuff, ops, whatever has to happen with other people happens on those 2 days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I basically leave those open for flow days. Like no external meetings. These are my thinking, building, and creating days. Each of these days is built around time block and not tasks. For example, for the Tuesday and Thursday, you see a bunch of yellow. Those are basically like tasks that I have to finish, right? So I don't basically do tasks all over my day, and then at the end of the day I'm like, what did I do today, right? Because you just get so distracted and you don't get into flow state. And it's the same thing with all the other days, like creative work, music, working out, script writing, new ideas, etc., etc. They're all in time blocks. I don't follow these exactly, but the importance is that you follow them to a certain extent, because you can schedule, for example, like writing a viral YouTube video at 10:45 a.m. and expect it to happen exactly in that time, but you can actually design space to make it happen. And I called this like structured freedom. And for example, like if your schedule always feels full, it's probably not a priority issue. It's more of like a context switching issue. Like most CEOs will never hit flow state because they're interrupted themselves every 15 minutes, right? And they don't have any structured days. Now, the reason I stick to the Flow Grid system is just because it gives my brain what it needs. Constraints for the non-creative work, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, but also the freedom for the creative work, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Right? Now, I don't need 12 hours a day. I just need 3 to 4 hours of focused work where I can actually go deep, right? So instead of trying to do everything every day, I focus each day on a different mode. Just to give you an example here again with like my calendar, like Monday, we have the script writing, right? Reviewing metrics, etc. Wednesday is designing like new AI systems for client delivery, but also like some music and just to keep more in a creative space. And then Friday, deep strategy, free day for overflow or vision work, as we basically get here. It's less about doing everything, more about protecting momentum, right? That's why we basically split it up into different days. Now, let's zoom in basically on the Tuesdays and the Thursdays, right? And these are the days where I get tactical. And I call them really like the external days because they're more so like people facing. So these are like sales calls, for example, with like my sales team, one-on-ones with the team, recruiting, back-end business ops, but also client strategy sessions, plus also some team training. Now, everything goes in my calendar, as you can see here, into like 60, but mostly like 90-minute blocks or sometimes even 2 or 3 hours. And with the yellow tasks, they're always like 1 hour. And I batch simmer tasks so that I don't go context switch every 12 minutes. And once it's on the calendar, I don't question it. I delete it once it's finished and I just show up and execute. And it also just feels really good if you can like delete all these tasks. And then at the end of the day, your calendar looks super, super clean, right? For example, here at the end of the week, you can just check like, hey, which yellow ones didn't I finish? And just go through them really easily and without using a shit ton of softwares, right? If you're drowning in calls and still don't feel productive, just batch your meetings and put them in like a context. Like you'll instantly feel in more control. Like you can actually do this with Calendly where you can just like batch your calls to be closer to each other within a certain period of time. Now the Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday is actually where the real magic happens. And these are like my builder days. I don't really take calls on those days. I don't really check Slack most of the time, right? Unless it's like something really life-threatening. And I don't read unless the building's literally on fire or react. And by this, I mean like the Slack, for example, in the team. Instead, I pick 1 or 2 core priorities. And usually it's something like, let's say, designing a new product feature, scripting a flagship video, or writing high leverage offer for the sales page, maybe architecting our next systems change, and having maybe like a quick talk with the CEO on how to do this or what to do. And I block the time basically by energy, right? So creative work typically happens in the mornings, as you can see here. Admin and light lifting happens after lunch. And these are the days that actually make everything else in the business possible. Now, next is basically like how I stay sane. Like now, I want to share a couple like personal touches that actually make this flow grid sustainable. And one is basically like the CEO reset. So I have a block every Friday afternoon, and I basically look back on the week, track the metrics, journal wins, and plan the next week top 3 things. It's like basically giving my brain like a weekly shower. So this is basically like my CEO reset. Then we also have overflow, right? So blocks on Friday morning. So things like unfinished tasks. So for example, I have to do that today. Today is actually Friday that I'm recording this video. And I see like, hey, I forgot to delete a couple things here. Let me just double check those. And that's basically for all the random stuff that didn't get done. And this is my catch all. It basically keeps things from bleeding into the weekend or into the next week. And then I try to have a hard stop at 6 p.m. like most days. I work hard, but I'm not trying to be a martyr, right? Like the whole point of running a business for me is to design a life that I actually want to live. Now, just like a quick systems overview, there's actually one that I forgot to mention. And the system is very simple. Here's how I run it. We have the Google Calendar. We basically use that to schedule like Tuesday, Thursdays, the meetings, and have flow blocks on all the other days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then what I use is any notes if for any additional stuff, but mostly like Google Sheets. And basically I call this a war calendar, where I basically plan out my entire year, all the trips that I'm about to make when I'll be gone. And I plan them for basically like the first 8 months, like all my vacations. There's a lot more that happen in the weekend, but these are mostly like the international big ones. Then basically for every month, I basically plan like for every week, like, hey, what are like the biggest tasks that I want to focus on this week? And what do I want to get done? Went well, what didn't go well, and what did I learn and do better, right? So at the end of the year, I can really see like, hey, what did I learn this year? How can I do better next year? And then last, we basically have Slack. So I try to have everything business related on Slack with like my YouTube team, my business team, personal content, etc., etc. And each tool then has a place, but none of them replace the strategy. And the tools, they don't really fix the chaos, the systems do. I'm not saying per se like, hey, copy my system. I'm basically saying like, hey, pick your rhythm and protect it like your life actually depends on it. Like choose your calendar days, choose your flow days. For everyone is different, and define your rules. Stick to them 80% of the time. I'm not sticking to this like 100% of the time, to be completely honest. Like sometimes I have something come up, like an important meeting that I have to take in that exact moment, right? Shit happens, it's life, right? So if you're always reactive, your vision will die. I can almost guarantee that. So at the end of the day, you'll basically be like, hey, what have I done today? I'm almost can't name it because I just have so much shit come up. Yeah, if you don't guard your deep work, your ideas won't compound. And this is how I've managed to actually stay consistent, scale past 100K a month, and still have time to actually live life, not just build business. If you're actually ready to scale, like you need to protect the thinking time that creates the breakthroughs. And the flow grid isn't about productivity, it's all about performance. If this video helped and you want to see how I use this system to actually plan content, manage my team, and architect our client offers, then drop a comment down below with the word flow. And if you want a breakdown of how we build our 100K a month offer machine, I'll basically put a video here on the screen right now. See you there. Welcome to the Exit Operator era. Peace.